Hey guys, my name is Brandon, and today we're going to be going over, our lesson interview questions. Interview questions can get really awkward really quick if you're not careful. That's why it's very important to know your boundaries and what you can legally say and can't say. This unit was really interesting to me, mainly because this is such an important process as a principal to be able to hire somebody to fill in positions at their school. You got to take into consideration your culture, your other employees, and then most importantly, your students. Looking at the unit, it covered a pretty good range of things you needed to know and what you needed to find out from somebody. And it gave you those 30 questions that you could look at that was information that you needed to cover, but how to ask it where you're within the boundaries of the law and didn't make things awkward or overstep anybody's privacy. However, I felt like there were some pretty big things that questions left off that you would need to know to make the best hire. And that's kind of more of the person's traits, whether it's their personal or their behavior traits, or even their work ethic and teaching strategies. I feel like that's very important for you to know and be able to take consideration going into the hiring process. And so to kind of look at some of that stuff, we have one way of doing it is scenario questions. You could ask the person being interviewed if they had a situation with another teacher, an issue, how would they go about solving that and being able to resolve the issue. Then you could also ask that if they had an issue with their principal, how would they go about bringing that to the principal's attention and being able to solve that as well. And then you can do something a little bit more fun, a little bit unordinary, which is like personality questions. One example is if you walked out these doors and you won $1 million, what's the first thing you want to do? You could do something off the wall with like, would you consider yourself a hunter or a gatherer? And ask them to explain why. And then one of my personal favorites is if you had to describe yourself as an animal, what would it be? And that's just something to kind of get a read on their personality, and you'll be able to see how they respond to that kind of off the wall question and give you a little bit more information on that candidate. And then lastly, you can look into their teaching strategies. And doing this, you could do something, for example, of in a perfect world, walk me through the perfect classroom. Or you can ask them to walk you through the perfect lesson or activity, something that you can kind of test their teaching strategies, their beliefs, and pretty much their skill level, with depending on how well they can explain the process for you. So you don't want to just ask just point blank what are your teaching strategies, but you could do different things to kind of figure those out. Another example would be say that you can ask them that say you have a certain student with certain accommodations, what's the process or would you handle that in your classroom. Once again, you're just kind of seeing how they respond to it and how much knowledge they have on it. And now a lot of people might think this would be kind of a tricky kind of thing, like you're trying to sneak around certain loopholes, whatever, and get information. But really, you're just trying to find the best hire for your school. Now, to do this, you got to be careful. You can't just go out there and just kind of say what's on your mind. You need to be sure that you have your questions worded correctly, where you're not overstepping your boundaries. You don't need to pry into certain answers that they give you, and just pretty much just use common sense. Put yourself in their shoes. Is this something that you'd feel comfortable answering? Is it appropriate to ask this question? And so on. So really, there's no tricks here. It's just find the best possible candidate for the position. To kind of help yourself do this, be sure you're well prepared. Map out your questions, have them fully prepared, even have a couple of extras in case the interview kind of goes kind of quick. And that way you don't turn into just scrambling for these ideas and then you slip up and use an unprepared question. And next thing you know, you're stepping out of bounds and you're in trouble. And so we don't want that to happen. Um, and so pretty much to kind of wrap up everything else, it just depends on your school. It depends on you. What do you want your culture to be? What do you want your environment to be? And that's going to kind of guide your interviews and your hiring process. And so that's about it. And I appreciate y'all and have a good one.